Hello, everybody. It's Bob McCraney, and I am back with the Flee Red States Project. And today I want to talk to you about some great folks we met at the Expatsy Conference. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you exactly how they can help you if you're considering getting out of a red state to either a blue state or out of the country.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, Bob. We're so happy to be here, and we were so elated to meet you in Texas. And yeah, I'm Sarah, and this is Liz. Liz, do you want to say hi? And
Hello.
we are the co-creators, directors, producers of a new up-and-coming docu-series called Better Abroad with a question mark.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
So,
I guess, and a little bit more about this series is that we chronicle the journeys of people that have decided to uproot their lives and cross physical and emotional boundaries in search of a better life. So it's been an incredible experience meeting people from all over the world with different reasons for leaving their home country.
so before we got started here, we were having a little pre-conversation, which ended up being like, oh my God, I want this on the podcast. We were talking about the experience of going to the Move Abroad Con,
Mhm.
which it was very transformative for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I find that when I try to explain to people what it was like to live in Texas for 36 years and to live under the oppression, I feel like I'm trauma dumping. But when
Mm.
I run into somebody who gets it because they lived through it or they're living through a similar experience, we have an automatic short code. They don't have to explain anything, they get it. We were just talking, Sarah and I were talking before you logged in about what it was like to go to Move Abroad Con. Let's touch on that for a minute, to be among the people who got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying that prior to going to Move Abroad Con, Liz and I being in this space of talking to people all the time who want to move abroad, we are constantly hearing stories that are um, trauma centered or uplifting or, fear based of all these different reasons as to why people want to move. And sometimes, especially in our political climate right now, it's hard to feel hope and to know that you have this future that's bright and everything that you want for your family and whatnot. And when we went to Move Abroad Con, it was like we were immediately transported into this safe space because we were surrounded by 300 other people that shared our values, that shared our same fears, that shared our same like hopes for the future, that it was like, it doesn't have to be like this, right? And whatever your reason is for wanting to move, whether it is fear-based or whether it's for, creating adventure for your family and having security or, just creating a different lifestyle for you. Um, Everyone being in that space together was like this rejuvenating experience of getting to be free and open and like free to discuss what you want to discuss and know that you're going to be heard and respected. And so it was just really, we both walked away from this like, oh my gosh, that was so wonderful. Like a true, like fresh, like breath of fresh air, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Liz,
you,
what do you want to
yeah,
put
if you
on
want
that?
to add, Liz.
Yeah, no, Sarah described it beautifully that it was this safe space and again, inspiring because we're meeting people from all walks of life that are looking to make this move. And some people were afraid early on when we started discovering all these stories to vocalize that publicly because they're viewed as anti-patriotic, not loyal to their country. How could you do that? Getting backlash from their families. And it was just really, really neat to see people move past that and discover what their stories were. And, we can't relate to all the people that we met, like have that identical personality that they have or their cookie cutter who they are. You might look at us and you think that we're soccer moms from Southern California, which we're not. None of our kids play soccer, by the way. But to meet people that are very different from who you are, but be able to relate to them. And I know that when we had our conversation, Bob, we were talking about how coming on this podcast would be really, really exciting. I said, well, we're straight females. Is that okay? But we're allies. And I think your friend and colleague, Leslie, said, you are not allies, you are disruptors. And I love that because that's what we are. We have a safer voice to speak to some stories that some people get backlash about. You know, people that decide to move because they're not safe in their home country. We can speak about that a little bit safer with less backlash. So we want to use these stories to inspire, to empower people. And even if they don't end up making the move themselves, even just making a move in their mind and shifting their mindset to how they can view the world around them.
You brought up the backlash that people get. And I realized just now, I have two stories when I talk about moving abroad. Depends upon my audience. One is, I've got to get out. I don't feel safe anymore. The other one is, I've lived in this country my whole life, and why not go somewhere else? Why not have a new adventure? These are two separate stories I tell, and the audience in front of me determines which ones I tell because I don't want to have to explain any further. And when I was at that conference, the people I says, I want to get out for these reasons, the honest reasons for the political backlash and all the BS that's always going on, especially for the LGBTQ plus community. Nobody questioned it. Nobody's like, here, like, you should stay and fight. And you should not. I'm 54 years old. I've done this for 30 years. I don't need to anymore. I'm done. And but just now when you were talking about that, I realized I have two stories I tell, and it depends upon my audience. And I bet I'm not the only one.
Yeah. You know what? That's an interesting perspective that you shared. And I can definitely see that with a lot of people that were there. I want to draw the analogy of when we were at the Move Abroad Con, it was like you're with your people and you feel comfortable and you can settle in. And when you're not with your people, I imagine it like holiday dinner with your family. You have to mind your P's and Q's, mind your political talk, keep some things like stifled a little bit and not really like let it out. And in that space, we could be free and talk about all of it. We didn't have to, grandma's here and, she believes this, so we can't touch that topic. So it was incredibly, I don't know, like this weight came off of a lot of people. I could see it because they were in their space.
Two things I want to say to that. One, the weight came off because I often deal with people who don't understand what I'm going through, and they look at me funny, like, but that's America. It's supposed to be the land of the free, and everything's great and apple pie. And I feel like I'm trying to convince them that this reality does exist with that other reality. And so just being in a group of people that I didn't have to convince was
Yeah.
freeing. The other side was I realized that I've built a community. That's what I tend to do is I build communities where I go. And I have people around me to support me. Some of these people coming there have no support base that
Mm,
understands them. So Leslie and I sat in the lobby. We were wearing our shirts. We're very identifiable. We put our pictures on the Facebooks. People would come gravitate to us and want to tell us their story. And
Yeah.
they would sit there, and we sat there for at least 3 or 4 hours both nights, just listening to people give their testimony about what they're going through. I was very proud. My cousin, straight, cis, sweet, loving Texas girl, Oklahoma girl, sorry, and she came from Houston to see us and just hang out. She sat in the lobby with us, having heard me buzz about this, but not really into. She sat there and just listened to people and let them get it out, and she was so patient, and I think it educated her a bit more about
mhm.
what I keep talking about, to have other people from around the country talk about having to pack everything and get out, even from a blue state, pack everything, sell the farm and get out. So
Yeah.
I was just proud of her, but I was also realizing that I'm lucky to have this community and the expatsy folks, you know, Jen and Stephanie and everybody created this for us. So thank you, if they're watching, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I now have pamphlets and cards and people around the world to talk
Yeah.
to, including you both, to try to help get this community larger for people who don't have the support network.
Yeah. Another takeaway I had from the Move Abroad Con was we know, like, intellectually and with our research and some other conversations that we have, we know that there are countries that are more progressive and more safe for people that have alternative lifestyles, or, you know, from smaller groups of society, whether that be your color or your gender identity, all the things. Um, what was very interesting to me was when we were talking to people, and I remember, Bob, I think you were in this conversation with some of our new friends from Portugal, and they were shocked that there was so much discrimination against the LGBTQ community in the States. They said, "What? That doesn't make sense to me. Are you kidding me?" And we had to explain it to them over and over again, because in so many of these countries, it's not a thing. It's just, this is who you are, this is how you live, this is how you identify. Why are we making that such a big deal in this country? But to see the shock and not understand, I think we had to explain it like 3 times. Like, no, this is how it is here. And they were just flabbergasted.
Yeah, I remember.
Let me
It's
go
like I
on
will
that.
never forget the look on her face, because I know exactly who you're talking about,
Yep.
and the look on her face was the most genuine shock and confusion. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I do not understand this at all. And for us who've been living in it and around it and see our friends and family and colleagues go through things, it's all too real. And to see somebody have this like shock and awe over this, and to think like, wait a second, it's not like that other places. Like, isn't this like a universal thing? No, it's just us.
Mhm.
Like,
So, so Bob was on on the panel for the LGBTQ plus people, and what was the name of the woman on the panel with you, Bob? What was her name?
Oh, why did you ask me? Now I can't think.
Anyway, but here's the
Cassie, I love
Cassie.
you. I just didn't think because you asked me a
So
question.
so Cassie moved from I guess about 2 years ago, I think it was, from San Antonio to Uruguay.
Mhm.
yeah,
And so she said she has a child that is trans, and she specifically chose Uruguay because that not only do they have laws protecting trans people, you know, they don't have anything going against it. And she spoke in this group of mostly LGBTQ plus people who were looking to move abroad somewhere, and they asked her about, you know, you know, the gay area of Uruguay and the gay bars and the gay this and the gay pride, and she's like, we don't really separate that
Wow.
because it's not an issue, and it boggles our mind that there's a place in this world where we don't need that safe space that we have created everywhere else.
yeah.
And by the way, two men who came in from, I think it's California, and they were looking at Mexico, and they were looking at Portugal and Spain. Nope, they're going to Uruguay. That was it. That's all.
Wow.
That is all it took for them, was to know that they didn't have to worry about finding that safe space in that country because there wasn't a need for it. And
Wow.
we could not. None of us could grasp. No one believed her. Like, what do you mean? There's not. It's like, you can just be you anywhere you are. It does not matter. And
Mhm.
it was so. It was a shock to our system to find that, hey, there is another place we could go, that it's not even given a second thought. So, but yeah, that was one of the bigger shocks for me there, is that we found out that there are places that, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's true. So another enlightening thing that I found out was, I was just watching one of Seppi's videos. She was at Move Abroad and on a couple of panels with us. She's the gal that founded She Hit Refresh. I was watching one of her YouTube videos about Iceland, and they have it written in their law that you are protected, you know, your gender identity and all of these things are in their discrimination laws in that country. So it's, I'm not an expert on every country's, you know, laws at this point. um, but it's just so backwards to where we're headed, and it breaks my heart. But at the same time, I'm glad there's spaces where everybody's protected. You're not discriminated against, and you actually have protections written in the law of Iceland based on your gender identity, that you're protected there for that.
So where are you? So talk more about, first of all, your project that you're doing,
Hmm.
and where are you seeing commonality in the people that you speak to, either in the destinations they're looking for, or their urgency. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has a different story, but one of the things I worry about, and I've used this phrase before, is I don't want to be on the last train out of Paris. I know
Mhm.
exactly how this happens. We've studied history. We've seen multiple times that this sort of authoritarian situation happens. I think that if people wait till the last minute, till everybody goes, "Oh my God, we should get out." One, your
Mhm.
house value will, because I'm in real estate, the value of the home you're trying to sell to flee will go down because there's so many people getting on the market. Plus, they're going to look and see Mark and Steve are selling a house. They probably need to leave. Let's bid less. Or,
Yeah.
Stephanie is selling the house, but Steve is on the deed, so they're dead naming. That person probably is over the barrel. Let's bid lower. What are you hearing with urgency, and what are you hearing with locations?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think to those specific two questions, urgency is a lot politically based. Um, Women's rights, uh, gun safety, families with kids, fearing for their kids going to school, um, and then gender rights. And I think those three are really big, but there's this overwhelming sense that like this has been looming for a while, and that like feeling inside of them, it just keeps getting worse and worse, where they feel like this almost like panic. Um, and then honestly, there are still people who are just like really want like quality of life. Like, and I don't
Mhm.
know honestly if they're just choosing not to tell us those other fears yet because maybe they're being a little bit cautious. Um, but right, like you said, Lizzie, like those two different stories that you tell people, and maybe they could be feeling us out for where we're at and everything too. I don't underestimate that. Um, but for this quality of life, like I don't want to work 60 hours a week and then not have time to spend with my family, not have time to do like, okay, so now I barely have enough money to pay my rent and have my car and all this stuff, but I'm not actually living. And I think COVID actually enlightened a lot of people to the possibility because so many people were like, oh, I can work from home now, or I have to work from home now, or so let me, travel a little bit while I'm allotted to do this. And so the world, even though we like closed up, it almost opened up in a certain way as well, where it kind of opened people's like minds to some possibility of living a life differently. And so we do see a lot of like quality of life issues as well, where it's just I want to actually live my life and be comfortable and then healthcare. A lot of people are disappointed with healthcare here, and whether it be for their children, say you have a child with autism and you are constantly like on the hunt for resources and the types of resources that you're getting, and you're spending all your like free time outside of work going to find these resources for your child. Then say you go somewhere else, like we have a family in Spain that we've been talking to, and their child is thriving like with autism in Spain. Something with no resources. They're not having to seek out anything, but it's like the ability to be safe, first of all. um, that openness and feeling like the weight has been lifted, and then speaking to language, learning another language, being in a very like multicultural area where everything is just celebrated. Um, their whole family is thriving in this different way. So, I think those are, I know I kind of like said a lot, but those are the big things that we're hearing over and over and over again. And then the two locations, Portugal, Spain, Mexico, um, Italy. Liz, what do you think? I think those are the biggest ones.
Yeah, South America too is getting a lot of people that want to go to South America for, it's more affordable than some of the European communities. Some of the weather is better than some of these European countries. I mean, we literally have inspiring stories from all over the world, and it also is what's motivating to them in that community. They might have a little in for their area of work or something like that, or they know the language. So if they have like a little edge that draws them to a certain community, they will. One thing I wanted to talk about for a second is, we keep seeing all these happiest countries on earth, most livable cities in the world, and we keep seeing all of these things. So I've done a lot of research on that, and they have one thing in common. All of these places that are the most livable and best places to live on the globe. Do you guys want to guess? You just want me to tell you? Okay.
Healthcare.
Healthcare.
It's a little bit more broad than that. They have an incredibly strong middle class. The middle class is supported there. They have a lot of time off. When you start your job, it's not uncommon to have something like 30 to 60 days or something like that off. They have protected time when you move. They have protected time for doctor's visits and all these other things. They don't have to use their vacation time or like make up the time later in the week. And they just have all of these social nets. They have cheap or free university education, cheap or free healthcare, and that middle class is just very, very supported. And unfortunately, in this country, especially right now, we're seeing the middle class shrink, which, if I had to look into my crystal ball, makes me very nervous. So, if you are looking for incredibly um, high quality of life, I would consider looking to countries where they have a very strong middle class.
And you talk about the middle class, and you talk about money provides security, and the less you're worrying about money,
Mhm.
the more secure you are, the more you can breathe and relax and actually enjoy your life a little bit. So money and time are probably the two biggest factors for people that they realize, I can't afford healthcare here, and I
Right.
can't, that one doctor's visit could just bankrupt me if I end up in the hospital. And going back to Cassie in Uruguay, her daughter spent 4 days in ICU, $51.
Wow.
4 days in ICU.
Wow.
And I think, and Kathy said she had a leg brace on because she had broken her leg or something like that, and it was on for several weeks. It was like $16. Like it
Wow.
was, this was, so there's no fear. Like if I get sick, if something happens, I can't afford it. And then education. I am encouraging everyone I know with a child that's about to go to college, go to Europe. Go,
Yes.
go to Europe, you'll get a great education. You'll have a better understanding about the rest of the world because you're going to be going to school with international students. Even though you do that here, it's different when you leave the country. When you step out of your comfort space, the education's mostly free in many cases. And if they need a job to work? I mean, if you go to the Netherlands, the I think the what is it, the hourly wage at a coffee shop is like 22 euros an hour, and you get healthcare
Yeah.
and you get vacation, even if you're part time. Like
Yeah.
so, and they guarantee you being able to afford to live. So I encourage everyone I know. It's like I know your child has their eyes set on this college, but they can go here for free. And I have one of my clients, they're from Mexico. He's making his children go back to Mexico for their college education. He's like, I can afford to send them here, but I could
Yeah.
also buy 3 homes with that. So
Sure.
he's like, and
Right.
their education will transfer over if they want to be here in the United States. Well, he's like, but I'm not going to for them to go to college here. It does not make financial sense, and especially doesn't make financial sense when many people right now who are getting out of university, they're not using their degrees anyway. So
Yeah.
so I encourage them all to get out. But the two big things is like time. I'm a Gen Xer. When I was brought up, I was raised by a boomer, so you're supposed to work and work and work and work and work and work. And you just keep working, like you just give everything to it. And it took me a long time to let go of that and be like, I don't have to give everything to it. I don't have to do that. There's me. And when people started realizing, oh, and COVID was part of this, oh my God, we can have time for ourselves. I'm not spending an hour driving to work and an hour driving from work. I get more time with my family. And I think people started appreciating and putting more value on their free time
Mm-hmm.
and putting boundaries up. no, you can't contact me after 5 p.m. No, you can't.
Yes.
Well, and I say this all the time. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, my phone goes into do not disturb at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. There are 10 people who can contact me after that time. And if I have clients, listen, don't go to voicemail. I'll get a text. If I need to respond, I will. But beyond that, I don't deal with that. And I think when COVID came around, people started realizing they have more value for that time that they were not spending working and driving, and they're setting those boundaries, especially younger generations. And I do think we're going to see that change, but I think younger generations, they see when they go to other countries and they see that, hey, they're not struggling and they're not killing themselves just to live and survive.
Yeah.
Right.
They're coming back in. It's like, I'm not doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote this down because everything y'all have said, fabulous. There are three ways that I see right now that we go into debt prison in the US.
Mm-hmm.
In the capitalistic society where we're all free, and by the way, I love it. I love my country, don't get me wrong. But education is a debt prison. They've learned that the universities can be mega fundraisers. So let's raise tuition. Even though we're taking state dollars, let's raise tuition and put everybody in debt so they're working for the rest of their lives for the big banks and paying that back. Health, if you get sick at all, debt prison. Even if you have insurance, they don't kick in until you spend your first 8,000, and then it's 80/20 with oh, I'm sorry, that doctor was out of network, and you shouldn't have taken that ambulance even though you were very sick. And so that just piles on the debt. And then when you get old, God forbid, if you're blessed to get old, then you go into debt prison again, trying to pay for the care that you need as an elderly person, and they take that wealth from going to the next generation.
Yeah.
Now, the top 5% probably doesn't have to deal with any of this. Doesn't matter. But as you were saying earlier, the compression on the middle class is absolutely at a critical point here.
Yeah.
We can't afford to get sick.
Yeah.
We can't afford to put our kids or ourselves through school. I'll just sign debt. I'm 4 years older than Leslie. When I went to college, they literally slipped credit card offers into all of our books at the university bookstore. They just piled on. Oh, get the credit card because they knew mom and dad would probably pay it off.
Wow.
We are taught that life takes Visa. We are taught that we have to have the newest phone, the newest this, the newest that. We are the consumer market for all the goods from around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so in debt.
Yeah.
And when you go to a country where instead of having 10 nuclear carriers and 55 nuclear subs, I love you, the military, I do, but they have healthcare, they have education, they take care of the people. They don't take care of the businesses that make money off of war and off of us living our lives, like aging and being healthy.
Yeah.
It's a different dynamic. And it to break that and to talk this way, oh, you're not patriotic, you're not American. And I'm like, yeah, I am. There's a better way. And we could bring that over. We could take care of we the people rather than the corporate system,
Mm-hmm.
the capitalistic corporate system.
You are
Side
hitting.
note, I
Oh,
had
go ahead.
19 of those I had 19 of those credit cards and only went to 2 summer semesters of junior college.
Oh my God, 19.
Wow.
Yep.
19?
Sarah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I feel like all of you guys are hitting this thing right on the nose because Liz and I mean, 100%, like her and I love our country too. We are both born and raised in the United States. We are Southern California girls. And we want to always our show is not, about like just leaving America. And it's not about like America's terrible and it's better everywhere else. Like the reason that we have a question mark at the end of our our title, Better Abroad with a question mark, is because it's about finding where you feel your best. And for some people, that still may be here, but also, even if you don't wind up leaving, bringing up these things about how they do things in other countries can open our minds and our perspectives here about the way that we vote, the way that we manage things here, so that there is possibility of us maybe getting somewhere down the line of getting some of these things But if you are feeling like that's not going to happen fast enough for you, that there's a whole big world out there that you can go and explore. And to Liz and Leslie's points of, you know, the middle class and money and how this affects everything, we hear over and over and over again how because we are in debt all the time, we are a very stressed out country. We,
Yeah.
as a community, and you see it all the time, like even just driving to the grocery store, the amount of road rage that you see, like the impatience that we all have, right? Like, hey, why are you honking at me? There is an elderly woman crossing the road, and I'm not going to run her over. You need to chill for a second, you know? But it's everyone's like, me, 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 me. I have 1,000 things to do, and I need to do it now. And so it creates this like cycle of stress that makes everybody like irritable and angry. And that goes into our daily lives, and that goes into our view on politics, and that goes into how we feel about working and putting back into society and who you're going to pay attention to and who you're going to help. When we talk to these expats who are in other countries where they don't feel that pressure, they explain over and over and over again that they now feel like they have the freedom to live and enjoy their lives, and that their quality of life is it's about money, but it's like that weight that's lifted where it's like, hey, let's go play in the park today. Let's gather some friends and go get coffee and play a game of tennis or go on a hike or whatever it is that makes you feel good, like you're human and alive and happy to be here with other people, and you're, you know, and you're free to gain community without the restraints of time and money and stress. It creates a completely different outlook on life. And that, when we see in other people who are living other places, is like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
I know. To pull both of your points together, Bob, about all this indebtedness and Sarah, people start living, where I see that kind of tying up together is we have a system of indentured servanthood, Bob. If I could just put a label on it, I think it's indentured servanthood, especially, my husband and I are in medicine, and to get through a lot of the rigorous schooling, it is indentured servanthood. You have to take out a bazillion dollars in loans and then work really hard to pay it off. And people in other, disciplines and specialties know that, but that's the world that I know, and I know how expensive that is. And then, Sarah, to your quality of life thing, and also tied to the money, we have a commodity that's available to all of us, but it is not as valued in America, and that's time. We are always, oh, I need to make more money. There's so many people that have side hustles right now. They're like, oh, I have an Etsy shop and my job and I do drop shipping or whatever to like make ends meet, and they don't value time. And I think I can speak to European countries specifically and other countries too, that they value time. I don't know if you've heard about third spaces. That's really valued. That's that cafe culture, that you have a third space. You have home, you have work, and then you have this third space that's meant for leisure and socializing. So, imagine walking through a piazza in Italy or walking through these beautiful parks in Vienna. Those are third spaces where people stop and they pause and they have a coffee or a glass of wine or watch their kids play. And that's another thing that we don't have as much here in the States. And that takes time. And you can see your return on investment, that if you take the time to pause and you can enjoy this third space and literally take a few deep breaths and enjoy your friends, I think that adds a lot of value to your quality of life. Time, third spaces, all these little things start to line up, and you can recognize why these places continue to rate so high on these lists of best places to live.
So how can we help you with your mission?
So we are storytellers. We are not selling a product. We are not selling a service. We are storytellers, and that's what's important to us. There are plenty of fantastic folks that have all the how-tos and the businesses that do that. And we met them at Move Abroad Con. So what we're doing right now is, I think you saw our episode I'll just pause for a minute there. You saw our episode at the Move Abroad Con. We had a premiere with our pilot episode, Vienna, Austria, with Josh and Taylor, who tell this amazing story of bravery and resilience and relocating. We want to keep doing that. So our goal is to curate stories from all over the world, all walks of life, and touch on the heartstrings of people that are wanting to shift. And like we said, this isn't to convince people to move, it is to inspire them to think bigger and possibly consider moving if that's what they want. So we are in search of funding right now so we can go out and tell more stories. We have fantastic stories. Ecuador, Portugal, Japan, Panama, all over the world. And we want to tell these stories, and it takes funding. So we're in a funding mode. We welcome businesses to align with us. And of course, there's advertising incentives and that sort of thing. But that's where we're at. So we can go out and tell these inspiring stories of brave, brave people.
Excellent.
Well, I would say
Martin.
one of the stories because I see on TikTok all the time. I follow a lot of women who have moved abroad, and and one of the things I look for when I started thinking, hey, let me get out of here. Where can I go? Is where do the women feel safe?
Yeah.
Where it makes a difference, and because I'm going to build a community where I go, but
Sure.
I would like to be in a community where those women already feel safe being there.
Yeah.
And I especially follow women of color because I figure if a woman of color is feeling safe somewhere, by God, everybody should be feeling safe there because it just makes more sense to go down to follow where they're going, and then I know that everyone around me should be feeling safe. And those are stories I see on TikTok all the time, and
Yeah.
those are stories I can't wait to hear y'all tell.
Yeah,
Those are
we've got
stories
a
I can't wait to hear
couple.
y'all tell.
Yeah, they're very inspiring. So women of color are all over the world, as you know. We are
Yes.
finding a larger diaspora in Panama, Mexico, Portugal. Um, and yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Where do women of color feel safe? Because that really does clue you in to the safety of the country as a whole. That's a really astute observation that you have. I love that. I know our friend Seppi She Hit Refresh. She is the expert on that because she helps specifically women over 30 move abroad. But yeah, very astute observation.
Yeah,
By the
also
way,
because, oh, go ahead.
but that's one of the things I noticed at Move Broadcon is that at least probably 60% of the people there were women, if not more, and most of those women were single women.
Yeah.
The ones I met were all single women, and I was kind of shocked at how many single women was like, I don't need anybody to go with me. I'm going by myself.
Yeah.
Like, it was great.
Yeah, so on that point, this is something that Liz and I have noticed over and over and over again that like all of a sudden one day we were like, have you noticed that 99% of the people that we have talked to about who have moved abroad or are wanting to move abroad, are either women, or if they are like a couple or a family, the woman was the driving force in the move.
Hmm.
And we talked to, was it Jen who was talking to us, who we mentioned that to? And someone said, it's the same in like car buying traditionally.
Oh, yeah. That
But
was one of our producers. She
oh, that's
is
right.
in the marketing industry, and she said the statistics show the same for large purchases such as cars. It's always the woman, if they're, in a straight relationship, like nudging the husband and saying like, "Hey, yeah, we're getting the red
We
one."
need to do
That
this.
puts them over the edge.
Yeah. So for a hot second, I mean, people would ask like, okay, well, who are you looking for? And, to interview and to feature. And our biggest thing is that we just want people who are passionate, who are wanting to tell their story. Obviously, this is television, so you need to be comfortable on camera and telling us your story. If there's something that you're uncomfortable with, we are not going, we 100% respect you. But obviously we want you to be able to be comfortable with us. We have a very small crew to be able to open up and be vulnerable so that our viewers can connect with you. But for a hot minute, people are like, okay, well, who are you looking for? And Liz are like, where are the men out there who have moved or are wanting to move? Like, we don't have any guys. And so, slowly
Look
we're
for the
finding
gay men.
whether the gay men, yes.
Look for the gay men. Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating though? And so Leslie, that you like are seeing that, and that you're interested in that. I mean, I know myself, like my husband and I and my family, like we're very big global travelers. We've traveled all over the place and we started traveling with our kids when they were 6 months old. Um, and we all love to travel. I'm the one who wants to move abroad. And my husband, it's not that he's against it, but he's like, we live in San Diego. It's awesome, like,
You know,
so I was like,
you say that that the women are the driving force. By the way, they're the driving force in real estate as well when it comes to couples. They are the driving force. But Bob and I met two women from Dallas, um, whose husbands do well for themselves. They're attorneys, and one of them's a kind of a global attorney, can have an office anywhere. Now, their husbands really don't see the need. But these two women, like they're in fight or flight mode. Like we're in
yes,
Texas, we're women. We have children. One of them says, "I have two daughters." she's like, and they acknowledge. And listen, we're privileged enough that we know we can do it. But they were asking us, how do we convince our husbands? I said to them, I was like, they their husbands are heterosexual white men. They're not going to live the experience that you live. And unless you sit down and explain it to them and show them examples, they're not going to see it either. So until they can have that experience or see it, they're not going to feel the way you feel. They're not going to understand it. And but they're asking Bob and I, how do we help them understand? I'm like, I honestly, I don't have an answer for you.
Well,
yeah,
and when they live in the patriarchy and they are the patriarch of the family and whatever, they're not going to feel the discomfort. They may logically understand the words flowing out of their wives' mouths, but they're not going to feel it. They're not going to internalize it. So y'all have some convincing to do. Here's all the facts that we have. Go back, and we do know that the wives should have an amazing amount of sway over this, but I can't go fix that for you. But yeah, when you're the one who's benefiting from the patriarchal society, you may not really want to go to a place that doesn't have that.
yeah. And then piggybacking off of that, I think that being in these spaces like Move Abroad Con or having connections to people who, I mean, like Liz and I are saying that, like, yes, we're telling stories to inspire so that you can kind of like live through the experiences of other people to try and see where your comfort level is at. Um, but to have experts in your pocket to be able to say like, okay, but how do I actually do that? Because I say that, I'm more the driving force in trying to move abroad in my real relationship, but part of that is personality wise too. Like I am your full blown like Aquarius Southern California girl over here and my head's in the clouds. Liz knows she constantly has to like bring me back down to earth. Like um and I'm more of the person in my real relationship that's like, let's just do it. It'll be fine and we'll figure it out and everything will be great. And my husband's very practical and there's a reason that we work very well together is is because we balance each other out there. And so he's like, okay, well, I hear you, but like, let's figure out like jobs and like, what are we going to do with our house here? And what are we going to do with our belongings? And what about our family? And what about, insurance? And where I'm like, it's all going to be fine. So, to be able to have these resources now that like we can both sit down and be like, okay, look, I met this wonderful person who is in this space and is an expert on this portion of moving abroad. Let's see what they have to say and see if this makes sense for us, where we can come together with our own ideas and everything and see if this is going to make sense for us. And maybe it's not today or tomorrow, but maybe we can start planning with these resources. And I think that, I know we keep talking about Move Abroad Con because that's where we met, but like, it really was wonderful. You know, my husband was excited for us to go, you know, Liz and I, because of this was a really big deal for us to show our episode for the first time in front of an audience. I mean, most of our family members haven't even seen our full episode. So this is a really big deal for us. So he was, of course, really proud of that. But also he was like, this is super cool. You get to go find out all of this information and bring it back, and we can like talk about how this may work, you know?
Sarah, you're what I call, and oh, by the way, all Aquarians are this to me. You're an anti-Mame. Have you ever seen the movie Mame or Anti-Mame?
No.
There's Rosalind Russell, and then there's Lucille Ball. I prefer Lucille Ball over Rosalind Russell, but that's a whole other thing. But it's about the woman in the Roaring '20s, and when the market crashed, and she just lives with her head in the cloud all the time. Like everything is possible. You can do anything, and she so every when you're with an anti-Mame or you have an anti-Mame in your life, every day is an adventure because they're crazy, Sarah. Sarah, they're crazy. But I will say, you're your husband's anti-Mame and probably your children's anti-Mame. So go watch the Lucille Ball version of it. Although Pop will probably tell you Rosalind Russell, and you'll see what I mean.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, let's wrap this up. I want to thank you both for being here. If there's anything we can do for you, let us know. And if anybody's watching, how would somebody get in touch with you two?
Yeah, so we have our website, www.isitbetterabroad.com. That's where you can learn a little bit more about us, the series, where we're headed, where we're going. And if your listeners and followers or colleagues and friends have an interesting story, we have a very brief like casting call application on there. It's just a couple of forms that you fill out and like a 2-minute video with your iPhone. We're always looking for amazing stories. So that's another fun thing that people can get engaged with our project for. We do have a little Instagram page. We set it up to just keep family and friends updated, but we're slowly growing, which is exciting. A lot of our efforts are going into funding and getting more stories out there and interviewing folks. So it's not the huge following, but we're getting there, and it's just a fun way to keep in touch with us. And that on Instagram, it's Better Abroad. What's the little downshift thing called?
Underscore.
Underscore. There we go. Okay. So on Instagram, it's Better Abroad _a_ docuseries.
Yeah. Yes.
There are no, when you say you have a small Instagram, there are no small meetings. The people who find it are the ones who are supposed to find it.
Yeah. I believe quality
Just
over
put your message out
quantity.
there.
Yeah.
Tag us in your message. We'll tag you guys when we can. And thank you for being here, and reach out anytime we can help you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. This was a wonderful time.